Alrighty, good evening to anybody who's tuning in on the replay. And, as always, please consider liking and subscribing. Tonight, I am just kind of burning the early morning oil. It's Friday night, well, Saturday morning, and I don't, I return to work on Sunday, so I can't stay up late tomorrow night, although I might do that anyway if I cannot sleep. But tonight, I'm relatively free to be up late without any serious consequence to my day tomorrow, aside from waking up late and screwing up my sleep on Saturday night. With that said, yeah, I figure just bang out some things I want to get done. Realistically, I should have been writing a script outline for a video tomorrow, and maybe I'll do that tomorrow anyway. I did do a little bit of work on a video because I kept redoing a video on how to digitize VHS tapes from via a DV camcorder, basically going from a VCR into an old camcorder, a relatively new but old camcorder, and then out the FireWire port on the camcorder into a computer. And it seems kind of weird using FireWire in 2023, but in my opinion, this is the best way that I can currently digitize VHS tapes. And so, yeah, hopefully I actually work on completing that or getting that moving. I kept redoing it because last time I did it, some details were missing. Then I did it again and something was out of sequence and I couldn't really edit it or salvage it in editing. But, I redid it again. But before I revisit that topic right now, what I want to do is talk about the game Kerbal Space Program real quick. And so actually I was just in the middle of, I did a Google search because okay, here's what happened. How do I get this tab up? Whoops, let's get that into the window. And then I might even lament about a weird issue about Windows, because there's always something up with Windows, right? But it's not a terrible operating system, although the company has a terrible history. But anyway, first things first. So I had last week streamed Kerbal Space Program 2. And this is the successor to the first KSP game, which was, for years, a fantastic game. I don't know. I think it was in beta for an extended period of time. There's a number of games nowadays that will remain in beta or early access for a decade, and I think Space Engineers is up there on that list if I'm remembering correctly, which is a game I really gotta stream soon. Or I don't stream Space Engineers because, well, there's just other people who actually play the game better, and apparently it's not even installed on this computer. And I think the reason it's not installed here is because I probably uninstalled it not long ago, so that I could reinstall it without plugins. It takes about 40 gigs. So I'm a little reluctant to put it on my SSD, which has a 37 gig, has 170 gigs on it right now free. My E drive has less. And then my F drive is a bunch of 8 terabyte hard drives. So if I put it there, performance is down. But you know what? I'm just going to put it there. For now, I can always move it to another drive later. Okay, so anyway, getting back on topic. Kerbal Space Program. I previously bought it on GOG Games, or GOG Galaxy. And, I bought it years ago. I was working at Best Buy at the time. Must have been 2017, maybe 2018. And this was during a phase of my life where I was starting to get up at 4 a.m. on my, on a work day. I had work at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. I would get up at 4 a.m. so that I would have hours to myself. I would literally, do stuff. I would get up, have breakfast, drink some coffee, and, if I had work at 9 a.m., or if I had work at 10 a.m., or if I had it later, I could get up early and do things. I can, sit down, because at the time I picked up a laptop that, well, I got it out of the e-waste recycling heap, but this was an awesome laptop. In fact, when I did a data backup on it, I labeled the backup set Awesome Acer, because this laptop is an awesome Acer laptop. It is basically it's a variant of the Acer F5 laptop series. And yeah, just one day, somebody threw out 2 computers in the Best Buy e-waste recycling heap. Not that we're supposed to be, you know, bringing these home, but everything on it was fine. It just had a busted hard drive. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll put an SSD in there. I'll fix it. You know, I'll replace a part. I think I had a 128 gig SSD and a busted hard drive. I forget exactly what, but I ended up putting like a terabyte SSD and a 2 terabyte hard drive in there, or some, you know, routine like that. I don't even remember. I think I put a 2 terabyte drive, yeah, because what I wanted to do was install Linux and Windows side by side, but I wanted to have Windows in my SSD and Linux on residing on half of my 2 terabyte hard drive. So anyway, my point is that this laptop, and I have a slightly different variant, but it looks like this. It's not like at a glance you'd think, okay, it's not really, you know, I mean, it's not ugly, but it looks kind of like, you know, semi-basic. It doesn't look like a gaming laptop. It's pretty unassuming. I have 2 of these actually, and one of them is very unassuming. The weaker of the 2 doesn't have any dedicated graphics hardware, you know. And what I mean by unassuming in general, like visually wise, I mean like here's like one that does look like a gaming laptop. Granted, this is a much newer model, but in general, like, you know, it's just the existence of a light-up keyboard, and it's got like this weird shape to it, you know, looks like a F-117 stealth bomber. I gotta put on the chat window. There we go. So yeah, I mean, that's, you know, an example here. But what ended up happening was when I got my first one out of the e-waste recycling heap, it had a GeForce 960M. This one says 940M, but yeah, it had, I'm sorry, 950M. And so this GeForce 950M would be like, you know, a dedicated GPU residing somewhere on the motherboard. So you'd still have the dedicated graphics on the CPU. And you'd have the dedicated, you know, GPU. You'd have the dedicated, you know, NVIDIA. And so to save power, it could switch between either one. And the other thing it had going for it was a 7th generation Intel i5, which, I mean, sure, you know, getting an i7 would be better. But at the time, finding a 7th generation anything in a waste heap, it was like amazing. Like, you know, just like, I don't know what this thing was doing there. My guess is somebody just didn't know what they had or something. I mean, mind blowing. They were told it would cost maybe $200 to fix, and they decided to just buy a new one. But like, yeah, I don't know what the hell, you know, why it ended up there, but it was literally there, new in box. I thought it was a trap. I showed up picking up this box saying, am I going to get fired for taking this box? Because I felt like it was put there as a trap. So I went into the inventory system. I said, does this exist in inventory? Is this a thing? And it wasn't. So I was like, okay, I think I'm relatively safe. Now, the one we're looking at here actually is similar to the one I gave to my dad. Although his does not have a, you know, dedicated GPU. It does have a 6th generation Intel processor. And I was going to repurpose it as my backyard laptop for the telescope. But it has some weird quirks to it. Like, I don't know, something was up with it. But it works fine for my dad, and I've tested it in that regard. It's been great. But let's see if we can find the more particular version here. I guess we could just type in 7th Gen i5. Because it was something like, you know, it was something like, yeah, there we go, 7200U, and I don't know if it's on sale right now. It's just, no, here's like a silver version of it. But these are the right specs. I mean, I think it had 8 gigs of the one I got. I certainly upgraded it to 8 gigs by the time I was using it. I certainly upgraded the hard drive and the SSD on it. Like I said, it had a busted hard drive, so I upgraded the SSD and, you know, doubled the hard drive. And it had 4 gigs of dedicated video memory. That was the cool thing about it. So that is, this Acer laptop had 4 gigs of dedicated video memory on a GeForce 950M. It had a 7th generation Intel processor, and this is like an early 2018, late 2017 ballpark. I might be a little off on my time estimate here, but somewhere in that ballpark. And this was the time when I had a desktop that was fine. Had an 8-core AMD FX 8350 processor. That's the machine I use for digitizing VHS tapes right now. But it had like some random 2 gigabyte ATI Radeon. I don't even remember. It was like an ATI Radeon 7800 something another, you know. It was somewhat new, but, you know, I mean, with 2 gigs of video RAM and, you know, me not even give a shit what details it had kind of shows to tell how not significant it was compared to other things. I mean, this is in a time when people were like, you know, paying out of the ass for a 1080 Ti and, you know, being all cool and hip and whatnot. And I'm just like nonchalant, like, yeah, you know, it's good enough, whatever. But when I got this Acer laptop with the 950M and 4 gigs of dedicated video memory, I mean, right there, it's a laptop that has double the video RAM of my desktop with a more up-to-date GPU than my desktop. And granted, like, if I was going and getting a GPU for a desktop at that time, if I was willing to spend my, you know, lowly retail salary on a new graphics card, I would have bought maybe a 980 or a 1050 or a 1060, you know, something better than a 950, you know. And if I stuck with the 900, yeah, I would have gone with a 980, not a 950. But all in all, it performed really well. I mean, like, I could play modern games all of a sudden, like, with ease. And so, suddenly, I wasn't using my desktop as much. And I'd be on the kitchen table playing games, you know, on this laptop. And, you know, I think, did I ever bother to set it up on my desk? Because I've had times where, like, I've had one laptop as my primary, and I'd put it on my desk like this and plug in a, you know, HDMI adapter and a USB hub and an Ethernet cable, and boom. That would, like, you know, be like my desktop replacement in a dual monitor configuration, because essentially the laptop screen is like monitor 1, your upper screen is monitor 2. You can swap their positions so that, you know, you can, you know, you got options, you know. But yeah, I don't remember doing that with this laptop, but this Acer laptop on its own was just a beautiful performer. I can't say enough good things about it, truly cannot. And so, circling back, let's see if we can find something here. Well, bottom line, you get the idea. i5, 7th generation CPU, with 4 gigs of dedicated video RAM on a machine that is packing, that at the time was packing 8 gigs of video RAM. And this enabled me to play Kerbal Space Program with relative ease, although my 8-core AMD wasn't terrible at handling it either. And Space Engineers, like, I got that as a present around Christmas time, I think, and someone, you know, sent it to me electronically as a present, and I was like, this game looks cool. I remember learning about this game in a random YouTube video where somebody built a Stargate command base on an asteroid, and they populated it with F-305 or F-303, you know, space superiority fighters. They might have put a Stargate or a gate control room in there. But it looked cool, and they were playing the Stargate song. They were playing a heavy metal version of the Stargate SG-1 theme while showing off this cool, you know, Stargate Command asteroid base. And so that was my first introduction to the existence of this game. Ouch. And eventually, yeah, I had it, and I had a blast. Like, you can take these little blocks and put ships together and fly them around and, you know, do missions and kind of like, you know, like, you got survival mode. You take some ice and you drill it down and you turn it into hydrogen. Or you can just go into free play mode and kind of mess around and, like, maybe just learn how things work, you know, because before you could build, you know, before you build a ship, sometimes you just want to fly one. And then I remember a coworker, I told him how cool, and he's like, oh yeah, the game is cool. And then he tells me about how he has fun crashing ships into each other. I'm like, wait a second. That sounds cool. And so I go home that day and I'm like, you know, I crash some ships together. Like, oh yeah, it's kind of fun, you know, right? Although the fun goes away when you start downloading mods. When you download a mod in order to add shields, like, you know, like energy shields or defense shields to a ship, suddenly it becomes less fun to, you know, crash ships into each other unless you can take away the shields from one ship but not the other. But man, I got sidetracked here. I mean, this is like a solo stream right here. Nobody's watching. And I didn't even get to the topic at hand, but I'm going to do it right now and probably going to record a video about that topic. So, let's proceed. The topic at hand being on the topic of Kerbal Space Program 2. A game that I discovered around 2017 or 2018. And I found it quite riveting, quite exciting, and I should be able to find it in my list right over here. Yeah, here we go. So I originally bought it on GOG Games. I don't know why I bought it here, but it was fine. At the time, I knew GOG was cool because you can get I was able to get a lot of games really cheaply, you know, and they didn't have DRM on any of them. It was like, you know, pretty straightforward, economical, cost effective. I had games that like I haven't played in years, games that I had CD-ROMs for that wouldn't work unless I put them on an old computer or set up a proper, you know, virtualized environment or set up DOSBox. And so to have them, you know, pre-rolled and ready to work was really sweet, you know. Because I downloaded bootleg copies of a couple of these games, and it was just easier to pay a few bucks because it wasn't expensive at all to buy many of these games. I mean, like $5-10, you know. It's like, boom, all right, yeah, take my money, you know. Like when you give someone a low enough price and you take away the hassle of, you know, going through the effort of bootlegging something, people will usually happily pay the price, or at least if they can afford it, they will. So yeah, there's that. So now that's Kerbal Space Program 1. In KSP 1, it was a primarily CPU intensive game. And what I mean by that is when you're running the game and you go to your task manager, you would see the CPU histogram chugging away more, possibly 90%, you know? And so if you wanted to record or stream that game with an application like OBS, which is not something I was doing years ago when I started the game, you would want to be using a NVIDIA encoder or GPU encoder, which of course it's not really using the GPU, we'll get to that, but it's on the same board as the graphics hardware. And apparently I forgot, oh okay, that's why my CPU usage is so high. So right now I'm streaming using a CPU based encoder, and I'm recording using a GPU encoder, and I can totally explain why I did that in a moment, because there's a perfectly good explanation for that. But forgetting about that for a moment, had I been using, you know, had I been using the GPU based NVIDIA encoder to stream right now, this histogram would not be showing as much activity as you see right now. But talking back about KSP, yeah, this would be utilizing CPU resources, and that was normal. The more complex the ship you were using, and what I mean by that is when you build a rocket, you might have like a small like lander craft or a capsule. Then you need your rocket booster. So you stack your rocket, you know, it's just like a real rocket. You build it from the top down or the bottom up. And maybe like a rocket has a satellite payload or something like that. You know, maybe this is like a satellite launching rocket, and you put like a satellite in the top. There we go. And now it weighs an extra few tons. Now you have a lot more parts. You got thrusters, you got a rocket motor here, you got a rocket motor and the multiple rocket engines on the bottom. And the more parts you have, you know, it's going to use up more CPU power. These are separate 3D models. So you launch your rocket. Then while that's going up, the fuel tank becomes expended. The booster gets expended. You usually would jettison that if it's an expendable rocket. Maybe you have a secondary rocket motor to boost it to a higher orbit, to boost whatever your payload or capsule contains. Maybe this is just a satellite launch. It's okay, boost to a higher orbit. Deploy your satellite. By then, you know, once you get down to this, okay, cool. It's not very CPU intensive, but when you build a truly massive rocket, or if you're downloading rockets from a website like, you know, there's a number of websites where you can download, you know, rockets that other people build. You can build your own or download them. And some of the larger ones, some of the more complex ones that had separate, you know, like rocket boosters onto them and whatnot, they would result in more CPU usage. And usually the consequence of that would be a lower frame rate. And sometimes you would just tolerate it. You'd say, you know what, I want to fly this exotic rocket today, and I'm going to tolerate 10 FPS for the first part of the launch until I can get, you know, into orbit, and then, you know, do the more complex stuff or something like that, you know. And other times you try to optimize it. Good, looks like I'm going to be able to wear myself out and get to bed soon. So anyway, that's KSP's baseline functionality. That's what KSP does. And apparently I've played it for 400 hours. I don't think that's entirely true. If you look here, well, I suspect that I may have left the game paused and running or something like that for an extended period of time, because I just find it very unlikely that I would have played. It's like, what is 440 hours? That's a lot. That's like, well, is it a lot? Hey Google, hey Google, how many days is 440 hours? That's not bad. It's 18 days. I guess it's conceivable, but I'm pretty sure at some point I left the game on pause by accident, because I've always looked into, like, is there a way to reduce your play count? And no. The answer is no. Excuse me. I was not intending on getting the yawns right about now, but looks like I'm starting to. I must retrieve something. Ain't finding that. All right. Boy, is this gonna need some editing. Oh, that's good. I'm glad these buttons don't work. So yeah, like I said, how I started out, and bottom line, KSP, Kerbal Space Program, fantastic game. You know, you fly rockets and you build rockets, and I had fun just building basic rockets, like just putting different combinations of rockets, saying, hey, can I put this many more fuel tanks together? And sometimes you build a rocket like this. Okay, looks like I'm gonna be ending this soon. Yeah, so anyway, you put a rocket together. Maybe you decide you're going to put 2 big fuel tanks together and then put your engines on the bottom, and your rocket becomes too heavy to get off the ground, and you're like, okay, well, guess I have to reduce the weight, or maybe I could add a rocket booster to this side, and that could be fun, you know? And of course, when you play the missions, you know, your job is to build a rocket to reach a destination within certain parameters, within a budget, like a real space program, you know? So that's kind of cool. Trying to find. Well, uh-oh. Excuse me, OBS. I believe that button's mismapped. Try that again. And so bottom line, when playing this game, it would be more heavy on CPU resources and not GPU resources. So typically, if I wasn't using the CPU encoder right now, this histogram would be pretty flat. And then when launching this game, the histogram would be at least showing at least this much amount of load, if not more. Whereas the GPU resources would still be not much higher than what we're seeing here. Maybe a little higher, but it would not, you know, make heavy utilization of the GPU, the graphics card. However, I get the yawns right now when I'm like I was like pumped energy wise, you know, like I wasn't pumped, but I mean I had energy. Like an hour ago, I had some energy. Anyway, on the other hand, the new KSP, which I decided to buy through Steam because I have, you know, a Steam Deck, and I was like, okay, well, it would be easier to just integrate and have games going back and forth between Steam and on my PC and the deck. Whereas putting GOG on a Steam Deck is doable, and I have it there, but it runs, I have to like boot into desktop mode every time I do it. So this game was okay, but Motherfucker. I'm just getting this uncontrolled yawning right now. Like, I'm trying to fucking talk, and I keep yawning, yeah. So as I was saying, KSP2, yeah, so this, I'm gonna have to edit the shit out of this. However, KSP2, on the other hand, is more heavy on GPU resources and less, you know, it doesn't use as much in the way of CPU, at least as far as I can tell. And the weird thing about this game was, when playing it, the weird thing about this game, when I played it the first time, was that my OBS window was skipping like crazy. Like right over here. This was skipping like insane. Like the gameplay like would be in this window. Obviously you're looking at my second monitor, but you'd have the video game showing in this area of the screen right here where you know, you'd have the video game showing right here in this box over here. And it would just be like you know, skipping like crazy. And ultimately, to fix that, I had to go here and tell it in the streaming settings to use the X264 encoder, which utilizes the CPU. It utilizes these CPU cores in order to do the... Yeah. So when I launched the game for the first time, I had to go here and tell it to use the X264 CPU-based encoder. Can I switch monitors? The weird thing was, when I played this game for the first time, I had to go into settings. I'm trying to do this as a video. The weird thing is, when I launched this game for the first time, I had to go into settings, go to output, and basically tell it to use the X264 CPU-based encoder for streaming. And that solved the skipping issue, the low frame rate. Conversely, my recording settings are still set to use the NVIDIA encoder. And so this is using a dedicated chip on the graphics board itself. And this is what alleviates CPU resources. So for example, if I was streaming using the NVIDIA encoder right now, this histogram would be pretty flat, or at least much lower. You would see less utilization than what you're seeing right now, and all of the, you know, work would be happening right here under the video encoding portion of the GPU, or the, you know, dedicated ASIC. On the, as it is right now, I'm using both the you know, CPU based and GPU based encoder, or vice versa, CPU based and GPU based encoder. As it stands right now, I'm using both the GPU based As it stands right now, I'm using both the CPU-based and GPU-based video encoders. And so if I was to hit stop recording, this would probably drop. This graph would probably drop a little bit. If I pause the recording, it might drop. There we go. I always set my... Whoops. I always set my task manager to update at a lower speed, but I'll increase it for a second. So you can see that the task manager is showing a flat line under the video encoding portion, but the instant I click this pause button or unpause, you're going to see it jump. So we're going to begin running the recording encoder on my Mark. And now you're going to see, once again, the graph jumps up. Once, you know, if I increase the speed again, you'll get a clear bump. See that? And so what you're seeing here is that, you know, when I'm recording or when I stop recording, this goes down because my recording settings are configured to use the NVIDIA encoder right now. And if I'm pausing the recording, well, it's not utilizing that. On the other hand, I'm streaming with the CPU-based encoder, and so yeah, this is continuously going to be up until I end this stream. I can't really pause the stream. I mean, I could potentially stop the stream and resume it, but I'm not going to do that unless I absolutely need to. So now, let's get back to the game. We're going to maximize it. And interestingly, in my OBS window right now, it's not skipping. I don't know if something was fixed, if maybe I rebooted my computer and it decided to be nice about it. I might just stop the stream and change the encoding settings and see what happens, because this issue I was having would occur before I even got into gameplay. And so, yeah, we're going to do this. We are going to do this. We are going to stop the stream. We're going to change. We're going to stop the stream. We're going to change the streaming encoder settings, and then we're going to start the stream again and see what happens. Alrighty, so I've just gone ahead and resumed the stream. So as you'll see over here on this histogram here, we should see somewhat lower resource utilization. So before we were closer to 50%, now we're close to like 29, 30%. You can see it's bouncing around a bit, but we are seeing lower utilization on the CPU cores by switching to the NVIDIA encoder. On the other hand, you'll see that the NVIDIA encoder is higher utilization. It was at this over here, now the bump is higher. And that is because we are recording and streaming at the same time right now. So if I pause the recording, see that? The bump dropped. And if I resume the recording, the bump rises. So same thing as before. Before we, only had one encoder running, and when we stopped the recording, it went to 0. Now it only goes to roughly half. So this is consistent with what we would expect. Now if we cycle back to the game, it's a miracle. I think it's working. Let's take a look at the YouTube side. I have it in a whole other monitor. Well, the YouTube side doesn't look so good right now. It looks like YouTube says I have an excellent connection. Oh, excuse me. I don't mean to be snotting over here. I just blew my nose on stream. Wow. Yeah, I should save the blank screen for that one, huh? I could hit a button for that. I could hit a button for that. Yes, I can. Ah, there we go. I can pick my nose now and you can't see it. Ha 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 ha. I gotta make a button for turning off the camera so I can do that in the future. Okay. So, yeah, it's on my second screen, and boy, let's crank up the quality. Yeah, I think it's working now. So apparently I may be spreading misinformation about this game because it's looking good right now. But I swear, if you saw the first time I streamed this game the other day, it was different. I guess I have to record a new video now. So yeah, I keep doing this. I stop recording when I start recording. Now I'm going to record another video and correct with corrections basically to a video I didn't even upload yet. A few days ago, I think it was like last week. Yeah. A few days ago, perhaps last week. Yeah. Okay. Last week, I played this game for the first time. KSP, or Kerbal Space Program 2. And at the time, first thing I noticed when I began running the game was that the video playback on YouTube and in my OBS window was erratic. The frame rate was choppy, like, and it was a mystery to me, but I was like, okay, well, what can I change? So I go into my OBS settings and I decided to change the streaming encoder from NVIDIA encoder to X264 CPU-based encoding. And that would be the difference between using your CPU cores, which is like, if you're using the X264 CPU-based encoder, it's going to utilize about 50% of this particular CPU's resources, like or like 30% more, basically this will go from this 34% or less, I think it was like 20%, and it'll go up to 50% easily. Whereas with a GPU-based encoder, all of the action happens over here. And you can see that demonstrated. If I click on this pause button right here, while you look at the graph over here. So I'm gonna click the pause button in 3, 2, 1, mark. And when I do that, well, it takes a few seconds because I update it on a slow rate. But if we hit F5, we can update it quicker. And you can see the graph is 50% lower. Now, if I unpause it in 3, 2, 1, mark, and we let it resume the logging, I get once again accelerate the graph. See, clearly there's a significant drop. If I was to stop streaming and stop recording at the same time, this would go down to 0%, and I've tested it a little bit earlier, like during the stream. So it's advantageous to use the GPU encoder because clearly it can handle at more than 2 high definition frames at 60 frames a second simultaneously without any issue whatsoever, without impacting the CPU performance. And just for example, if I pause this right now, I pause the recording again. I mean, it doesn't really hit this graph at all. So this is exactly what you want. This is exactly why you go through the trouble of going into the OBS settings menu and changing it from, CPU based encoding to NVIDIA encoder, because it frees up CPU resources. You can do other things. If you want to demonstrate something, a game or an application that is CPU intensive, then you don't really want the video encoder tying up the CPU resources, There are reasons to use a GPU-based encoder, and this is one of them. So anyway, let's get back to our game. So yeah, it's working better already. So we're going to just try it out. So I'm going to give you back audio because I turned off the audio apparently. We'll crank it up. Hopefully it's not too loud. And we're going to go and play. I'm not going to change any of the settings. And I'm reluctant to load a quick save, but I'm going to load the quick save. Loading time is okay. Now, it might be interesting if the performance drops. Well, we'll see what happens. Oh god. Oh, okay, no, it's because my capsule was free falling. Okay, now it's fucked up. Now the video playback is all... See, look. Like, my hand is moving like this. And that's happening on YouTube. So, yeah, still a problem. Okay, I got excited for a second. I thought the problem was solved. It's not. Now, how can I solve this for streaming or recording? Well, I can solve this by going into the settings. Not these settings. The OBS settings. And switching the encoder. And that's exactly what we're going to do. What we're going to do it for the CPU and the GPU. Well, I'm reluctant to do it for the recording encoder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording again. I'm going to pause it. Well, my performance is better now, but the KSP window minimized. So we're going to maximize, okay. Streaming performance is still garbage. I'm just moving my hand around to see if it's skipping. It's like a motion test. Okay. And so we're going to go back to the, OBS window one more time. Click on settings. So I got to stop the stream in order to change the settings for streaming. Oh. Alright, I'm still streaming. I stopped the recording because I want to see. Okay, OBS does not let you change the streaming or recording settings until you stop doing both. Okay, we're back. The game is streaming again. And this time, I may or may not start the recording. What is the consequence if I start recording? Well, right now, we are using, about 70% CPU, but the game is running in the background right now. GPU is at high load, which is expected, And because I turned off the video encoding portion of the NVIDIA encoder, this is down to nothing. My guess is this might be a function of video memory. I think that's exactly what's happening now. That's my speculation. That this game is using up, you know, more video RAM, and maybe the NVIDIA encoder can't work unless it has some leg room in the memory. I'm just guessing here. Let's see, I guess we could Google that. Does NVNC use video RAM? Yes, at least I believe. Huh? I love how all these answers are all over the place. Like, granted, it's a 4-year-old post. If you're using NVIDIA encoder to record or stream, you're most likely having your GPU downclocked without even knowing it. That might be... Okay, this is a 4-year-old post, so once again, I'm not trusting it. Yeah, I don't think it's really an issue. I'm reading a lot. Okay, this is relatively new. The premise is to handle video encoding without impacting game performance. Yep, and without using up a lot of power, potentially. The general consensus seems to be that it does use a bit of CPU and GPU computing power, and more if you use the color encoding settings of the NV12, but not enough to worry about. But recently this guy discovered, by playing and recording 15-year-old games, or a 15-year-old game like World of Warcraft, the NVIDIA encoder uses a bit of CUDA computing power in and watts. And he says he's got a 2060. I have a 2060. I have a 2060. I don't even know which one I have. I just got a 2060. He's got a 2060S. And he plays at 4K. What is your fucking problem, bucko? I'm sorry. Why the fuck are you playing World of Warcraft at 4K at 60 frames a second? I'm sorry. I'm trying to get information here. I'm trying to get useful information here. And this dude is whining about a scenario that makes no freaking sense. I mean, it's a 15-year-old game. Who the fuck? Why are you playing it at 4K? Give your computer a break. Save some trees. Not that I care so much about that. But, you know, like, burn less coal, burn less natural gas. I mean, Jesus, like, all these environmentalists are whining. Maybe if fewer people were playing 15-year-old games at 4K, fewer environmentalists would be whining so much. I lost my mouse pointer. Did my battery die? Or did my mouse get dirty? Ah, got in my eye. That sucks. I wasn't planning on changing the battery in my mouse right now, you know? Oh, okay, wait. I might have some batteries. Alright. I do have batteries. I don't know if my battery is actually dead, but I'm getting the impression that the battery is dead because... Oh, yeah, I'm getting a red light. I think my mouse is trying to tell me that the batteries are finally low. Well, good thing I just bought more Panasonic rechargeable batteries. These batteries are great, by the way. So these Panasonic Eneloop batteries are just good quality rechargeable batteries. They're a little bit on the long side, I noticed. Like, apparently, I don't know if there's like a defect, but I had this problem when I tried to use my frickin' Speak and Spell. So, the way it works is this takes C batteries, but you have these adapters where you can put these batteries inside of a adapter, in order to fit it inside the slot for a C battery. But when I tried to shove these Panasonic batteries inside of this, they didn't fit. There's like no clearance whatsoever. Like between this metal piece here and this compartment, there was no play. I literally could not get the batteries to snap into place. And just now, when I went to put the first battery in, same thing. So that one fit in just nicely. That one was fine. This one here feels like it ain't coming out unless I get a tool on it. Like this one's not spinning. Look at that. This one's like spinning around. And this one's just like not moving now. This one like snapped into place. It's like it's not spinning. Oh, like that one I'm worried about. Like one of these batteries. I'm so glad this battery is not stuck. Because at least I can get this battery out. Then I could take a plastic pry tool and wedge it underneath the battery here to get this one out. But this one here, yeah, when I put the first one in, holy crap, it like, I had to give it some force to get it to snap into place. So I may have one defective Panasonic battery. Maybe like, if I get my calipers out, I can measure these and find out if some of these batteries are bigger than others. Oh wait, I know what happened. The bottom of this battery is probably dented from exerting massive amounts of force on it when trying to put it inside the speak and spell. And so what happens when I try to put these batteries in the speak and spell, I put a lot of pressure on them. I created a dent on the battery, and we could probably see that if we take a look. So let's see. Let's take the battery out. No, it's not really a dent there, but it does have like, yeah, it's a minor impression, but like, I wouldn't call it a dent. As for this battery, I'm not looking to get, I don't think I'm going to take this battery out until it's ready to come out. Like until this battery needs to be recharged. Okay, well, there we go. See, this battery here has a dent on it. This battery has been mangled. See, when I put the left side battery in, this battery was like, nope, nuh-uh. And then when I put the other battery in, it was like all fine and dandy. And there is like a little bit of a mark there, almost like something cylindrical made a mark. But this one looks like I really fought with it. This one here looks like I was fighting with it, trying to shove another battery into it or trying to slide it into something. And like, you can even see I made a mess of the, label here too. So if we do this, take the more messed up battery and put it in the opposite slot. Yeah, that's tight. That's tight. Look, it's not even in all the way, right? And it's like that on. Oh wait, okay, that side it fit better. So I'll try to get on this side. So it looks like, oh yeah, that's tight. Oh my god, that battery was even tighter than the last one. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the more messed up battery and put that in a slot that looks more questionable, that, is tighter. So apparently these batteries must be built to tighter tolerances. That would be my only complaint about the Panasonic and Loop batteries, is that depending on what you're putting them inside, if your tolerances are just a little too tight, you're going to have a bad time getting it in or out. And so this one is more like cutting it close. Whereas the speak and spell, I can't even get the battery in there. Like maybe if I take apart this speak and spell and, take it apart and try to like modify it, I might be able to get this to fit better, but then I'd imagine it would not accommodate regular, C batteries quite the same ever again. Oh well, that was going off topic there, so we're gonna just put this back. This is a Kensington trackball mouse, and what's cool about it is it's got this button that lets you switch between the included USB dongle and 2 separate Bluetooth devices or Bluetooth compatible devices. So I can set it up with my phone and my laptop, or my Steam Deck and my laptop, or any combination of devices. Okay, there we go. We got a green light. Now it works. Well, now it should work. Oh, I see. There we go. So yeah, anyway, this is not very helpful. Basically, his GPU goes from 1200 watts, 1200 megahertz to 1900 megahertz, 70 watts to 140 watts when he's recording video. So I'm going to guess that this is because he's using an older GPU. What did he say he was using? What GPU is this guy using? Well, that's number one. He's using a deprecated encoder. Okay, so it's cool. People gave some useful information on how to optimize, you know, his presets in order to help with that issue, but that doesn't help me. Or does it? Well, that's good. Looks like the Linus guy did a comparison of the old version and new version. So yeah, as it stands right now, my experience is when playing KSP2, the streaming performance is garbage right now when I'm using the NVIDIA encoder. If I switch to the, X264 CPU-based encoder, then I have a better experience than what we're encountering right now. If we look at the Windows Task Manager, we can see, 3D acceleration is near the max. Video encoding is up there too, although... Is it? Let's see, we'll let the graph roll. So I almost never see video decode flashing, but it is now. RAM usage, I know I have a lot of crap open. KSP's using like 90%, so that's another interesting thing. And I remember seeing this in a Scott Manley video. I gotta record this as a separate video. For me, as it stands right now, when I'm running KSP2, it is more GPU intensive than, playing, KSP1. When playing the old Kerbal Space Program, the original game, you'll see higher CPU usage, and typically that will be dictated by, say, how complex your rocket is. If you have a rocket with more boosters on it, more, stages, more whatever, more engines, more parts. Especially when you build your own rocket and you're downloading, components from online. That's gonna, definitely utilize more CPU power, and you're gonna see it reflected here and up here. But this version of KSP, on the other hand, actually utilized the GPU, whereas before it used some graphical power, but it wasn't as GPU intensive as this new game. I'm not really sure where it's all going, because like it doesn't appear to be using the video encoding portion of the NVIDIA encoder, and yet the results speak for themselves when we look at the stream I'm running. Whether I'm playing the game or just in this particular page here, it'll give me a hard time. If I quit the game, I think things will improve almost instantly. And okay, I'm gonna have to test this out even further. So right there, you'll see that the video memory went down a lot when we did that. So I could ask around and ask people, like, what is it that uses the resources? I could tweet back to Scott Manley on a week-old tweet, which I don't really want to bother the guy, to be honest. I mean, maybe I'll bookmark it in my notes. Shit, I still got to reply to a comment. I got into like I began not arguing. I replied to some jerk on, some, Reddit page who, was arguing that viruses didn't exist. And, this shit
What's better?
is absolutely annoying. It was like, showed some jerk off, post from some guy who's not even a fucking doctor, or he's like a psychologist. It's like a psychiatrist. I get it, you go to medical school, but it's not a real doctor. And so I don't know, I give some counter arguments, and the guy gives me some dumb page that is written by a psychiatrist saying why viruses aren't real or some crazy shit. But yeah, I'm getting tired. I'm all over the place right now, so I'm going to get to bed before I'm way ahead of myself. And we'll resume this tomorrow with a more organized stream, and I'll probably do some graphics testing before streaming. Just so that I can have a more productive stream. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Although real quick, let's do a real quick one here. What I want to do before I go to bed is I want to turn off my old computer. This is an application here I run for digitizing VHS tapes, or digitizing, FireWire capture. Basically for recording video from a DV camcorder. And in one of these folders, I have videos recorded from a VCR. Now, a lot of these are blank because they exceed the length of a VHS tape, let's say. So somewhere here, it's going to get to a point where it's going to be blank. There we go. So file number 5 and onward. And the reason that happens is because, or 6 through 8. The reason why it records all of these blank files is because we're recording from a VCR going into a camcorder. If the camcorder tape was rolling, then the capture software would know to automatically stop when it reached the if the tape in the camcorder was rolling, if the tape in the excuse me, I gotta go to bed. If the tape in the camcorder is rolling, the capture software would know to automatically stop recording when it got up to, the end of the tape. But since the camcorder is simply acting as a pass-through device for the, signal coming from the VCR, the camcorder will keep sending a signal for the software to capture until some indeterminate point in time. In fact, I think it just keeps recording until you run out of hard drive space. I don't even remember. But either way, we have it. We delete the excess files. And we're going to move this over the network to a location where I would store such content. In fact, I think I made a folder shortcut up here. Yep, there it is. And I should have 2 versions of this, but they're identical. So I'm going to delete one of them after doing a quick comparison tomorrow. This one here, basically, it stopped recording in the middle of a file because I left OBS recording at the same time. And it basically ran out of space because of OBS and this running simultaneously. And so the tape kept playing, but this was no longer recording. So the first 2 files here will basically be almost identical, except this version is going to be more complete. The version that we're copying right now is going to be more complete than this version over here. But at the same time, the nature of analog tapes, I'm concerned that if I keep playing the same analog VHS tape over and over again, maybe one copy will look different than another copy. And if that's the case, then maybe I want to splice those 2 versions together to ensure I get the best quality. Most likely I won't see a difference, but if I do, well, we want to find out in the name of science. So with that, this time I am definitely truly ending this stream. And as soon as this computer is done copying data, I'm going to put it to sleep mode. I'm putting that computer to sleep. Yes, I am. So, yeah. If you have any questions, comments, and ideas, I would say comments, questions, and ideas are good. Comments, I'd say this stream was kind of dull anyway, so I don't think comments per se are warranted. But to each their own. So, yeah. With that, thank you for watching.